Hey, I'd like to welcome you to episode 2 of my video series about creating your ideal life. If you haven't watched episode 1 yet, go check it out. It should be somewhere around here and easy to find, so watch that first and then come back to this. And what we'll cover in this one is income and how you can take the first few steps towards finding the income that you want in a way that aligns with the goals and the things you want to do. So finding the source of income that matches those things. I think by the end of this video, you'll have a lot more clarity as to what kind of work and stuff for income you'll want to be doing, and hopefully you get a new perspective on the concept of work. So when it comes to sources of income, you basically have three main options when it comes to types of jobs or sources of income. So you can get a job where you want to live, or you can get a remote job and work anywhere, and you can make your own location independent business. So those are like the three main ones, like huge categories, but those three are the main options. And they all have their pros and cons. It depends, like the flexibility you have, the security, how much money you want to be making, the risk, all that stuff is just varying from person to person what you would prefer and what kind of things you would suit your personality type. So I think one of these three should be your main focus, at least for the next forthcoming future. But the real thing that's so liberating is that it doesn't have to be the same for the rest of your life. You don't really necessarily have to do one of these three your whole life. You can change after a few years. So don't feel like if that change comes and you decide to switch between, saying, having a location independent business and working somewhere, like it doesn't mean that you wasted any time at all in your life, because life is about the process. And that's the same with the worksheet here as well. You have like different things on there and they're not necessarily static, they can change. And that's alright, because life is about the process and it's meant to change on the way. So anyway, you pick one of these three as the main option, the main thing that you want to go for the next few years. Then we have to dive deeper into the specifics. What exactly will you be doing within these three different categories? And the ideal thing here is to match your source of income up with your interests in some way. For some people, work is kind of a necessary evil that you have to do to get the income you need to survive, but it doesn't have to be that way. And if you manage to align it with your interests, I think that it can feel a lot more rewarding, because work can fulfill so many more purposes than just the monetary part. You have social purposes, you have the feeling of contribution to the world and the people around you, the feeling of improving something and feeling that you're mastering a skill or improving a skill, using your interest and developing them, etc. And if work manages to fill many of these, then I think you'll have a better life, to put it that way. So how do you get a job or a line of work that's related to your interests? Well, say that you're a guitar player and you like playing the guitar, but you don't feel like you can become a professional guitarist in a famous rock band because, well, it's really hard and the competition is too fierce, etc. But you can still try to get that interest involved in some kind of other work. So that can be, for instance, you can teach. You can teach maybe online or in a music school somewhere. Maybe you can compose some stuff on the guitar and then sell it to independent films. Maybe you can work in a music store, or you can just end up being a guitar player who busks on the street from time to time and has other income on the side as well. I mean, there are many options there, and no ideas are stupid. Maybe, of course, some ideas are harder to actually go through with than others, but I think just having a think about all these different ideas that you have as to how you can involve your interest in the source of income are a great way to think. And then after a while, when you have thought out some ideas, then maybe you can start to look at what's realistic, what can I try to work towards. But there are definitely other possibilities than the first ones that come to mind when it comes to making money from your interests. Another thing you should look at when it comes to what kind of source of income you want is the goals from the previous episode's worksheet. So based on those goals, how can you use some kind of work as a vehicle to get to those goals? If you combine that with the interest that you want to relate to that source of income, I think you can come up with many different ideas on what sort of stuff you'll want to be doing and how you'll want to be doing it based on the three main categories that I outlined in the beginning. Now let's move on to the next section. How much money do you actually need? It's a good idea to try to calculate this, and if you live where you want to keep living, then that's relatively easy to just look at the living costs. But if you want to live somewhere else, you should also do some quick research on what kind of living costs you would incur if you live there. And often, if you are young and you live on your own, it's not really that much. Well, obviously, that much. It's a relative thing to say, but you know, it might be not as much as you expect. However, once you have that idea of how much you need, then it's also obviously good if you have the opportunity to make a bit more than that, and you can save some for later in life where you will need more if you start a family later on and things like that as well. So it's good to get an idea of this, and of course if you make more it doesn't usually hurt. But once you've done that research, it creates kind of a baseline as to the kind of money you need to be making to live a sort of stress-free life where you don't have to think about and worry about money all the time, so you should have some safety margin. But just having that amount there, a rough amount, as a baseline, really can help you see how much you need to be making, and that can help you see how far you've come towards that goal. So how do you go about getting started with this? To find a source of income or a job that fulfills more than just the income part, that's related to your goals and related to your interests, and still make you enough money to survive. Well, it sounds simple, and it's sort of the step-by-step list I'm going to give in a few seconds is quite simple, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. So this is kind of a long-term process that you have to work on. But if you were to work on it, and which I think you should, here is sort of the baseline and the things on the list for you to check out. The first one is to just pick one of the main 3 categories of jobs I mentioned in the first one that you want to go for first. Then it's to look at your interests and your goals and find what kind of interests do I want to relate that job to, and how can I make money from it based on the different brainstorming sessions that you have with yourself, just as I had with the guitar player a few minutes ago. Then it's look at what skills or certifications or equipment you need for that kind of job. And once you have that, then you work towards getting those skills or getting that equipment or getting those certifications. Obviously, this is just a starting point for how to think about work, but look at what we've done here. For many people, the life is shaped by the work that they have, but in this video I've tried to make work be shaped by life. See how that's different, and that's kind of upside down. And I think that second option leads to possibly a better life, because then you have your interests and your goals, and based on them you can start to figure out your sources of income and your work. So I think this is a nice approach that people can use, and obviously this is a long-term thing. And that doesn't mean that life has to be miserable on the way towards that goal. Now we have some sort of project to work on here to try to get closer to that kind of line of work, but on the way there you should enjoy life as well. So that's what the next video is about. How do you enjoy life in the process? How do you enjoy the process and find sources of happiness, things to live for, and get closer to that ideal life without having the work thing perfectly in place already? I think that will be a useful video for you, so I'll see you there, and I'll thank you for watching this episode.